Ethan stood still in the center of the room trying to control his breathing. This was supposed to be the happiest night of his life, his wedding night. But something did not feel right. The room around him was beautiful, but also strange. The walls were smooth and glowing with soft golden light. It felt like the room was alive. The light moved slowly, like it was breathing. There were no windows, no doors in sight, only one large curved opening behind him, shining with a quiet blue glow. Ethan looked down at his hands. They were shaking. He had just married Lyra. A few hours ago, everything had felt like a dream. She was kind, calm, and gentle. Her smile made him forget that she was not human. She told him her people were peaceful. She said they wanted friendship with Earth. He believed her. He trusted her. So why did everything feel so wrong now? Ethan slowly looked up. Lyra was standing near the large glowing window. Her back was turned to him. She was looking out at the stars, silent and still. "Lyra," Ethan said softly. No answer. He took a small step forward. "Is everything okay?" Still nothing. The silence grew heavy. Ethan felt a cold feeling in his chest. This was not the same woman he married just hours ago. "Lyra?" He tried again. Before he could say more, she raised her hand. Just one hand. But it stopped him completely. "Don't," she said quietly. Her voice was calm, but different. Ethan froze. Slowly, very slowly, Lyra turned around. For a moment, everything felt normal again. Her face was still beautiful, calm, perfect. But then, her eyes began to glow. A soft purple light filled them. Not natural, not human. Ethan stepped back without thinking. "Lyra, what is happening?" She looked at him, but her expression had changed. There was no warmth now. Only power. Only control. When she spoke again, her voice was deeper, stronger, like it carried weight behind every word. "There is something you must know." Ethan's heart started beating faster. "I am not just your wife," she continued. A pause. A long, heavy pause. Then she said the words that changed everything. "I am a queen." The room went silent. Ethan blinked, trying to understand. A queen? What did that even mean? Before he could speak, before he could even think, the doors behind him suddenly opened. A loud metallic sound echoed through the chamber. Ethan turned quickly. 3 tall figures walked in. They were armored, covered in shining silver and gold plates. Their faces were hidden behind dark helmets. Each of them carried a weapon. Ethan's heart dropped. The soldiers stopped a few steps away. For 1 second, Ethan thought they were there for him. But then, all 3 of them dropped to one knee. They lowered their heads and bowed, not to him, to Lyra. Ethan slowly turned back to her. She did not react. She did not smile. She did not even look surprised. She simply stood there, like this was normal, like this was always the truth. "Your Majesty," one of the soldiers said. Ethan felt his chest tighten. "Your Majesty, this was real. This was not a joke. This was not a misunderstanding. Lyra was telling the truth." Ethan took a step back. Everything in his mind began to break apart. The wedding, her kindness, her soft voice. Was it all fake? Was he just part of something bigger? "Lyra," he said, his voice weak now. Why didn't you tell me?" For a moment she said nothing. Then she walked toward him. Slow, calm, powerful. Every step made Ethan feel smaller. When she stopped in front of him, she looked directly into his eyes. "This marriage," she said quietly, "was never just about love." Ethan felt like the ground disappeared under his feet. "Then what was it about?" he asked. Lyra stared at him for a long moment. Then she gave her answer. "A decision." Ethan frowned. "What decision?" He leaned slightly closer. Her glowing eyes locked onto his. "A decision," she said, "about your kind." Ethan's blood ran cold. In that moment, he understood one thing clearly. This was never just a marriage. This was a test, and he was the one being tested. As the soldiers remained kneeling behind him, Ethan realized something terrifying. He was not in control. He was not safe. And he may have just stepped into a game far bigger than he could ever imagine. And now, there was no way out. Ethan stood frozen in front of Lyra. His mind was full of questions, but no words came out. The room felt colder now. The soft golden light no longer felt warm. It felt like it was watching him. Lyra stepped back and looked at the soldiers. "Leave us," she said calmly. The soldiers bowed again and stood up. Without a word, they turned and walked out of the room. The doors closed behind them with a deep, metallic sound. Now it was just the 2 of them, Ethan and the Queen. Ethan took a slow breath. His heart was still racing. "You used me," he said finally. His voice was not loud, but it was sharp. Lyra did not react with anger. She simply looked at him. "I needed to understand you," she said. "Understand me?" Ethan shook his head. "You married me for that?" "For more than that," Lyra replied. She walked past him and stood in the center of the room. The glowing walls slowly changed color, shifting from gold to a darker shade, like the room itself was listening. "My people are not at peace," she said. Ethan turned to face her. "But you told me." "I told you what was needed," she interrupted. Her voice was calm, but now there was something heavy behind it. "A war is coming," she continued. The words felt like a weight in the air. Ethan frowned. "War? With who?" Lyra raised her hand. The air in front of them shimmered. A large image appeared floating in the middle of the room. Ethan stepped back in shock. It was space. Dark, endless space. And inside it, ships. Huge ships. Black, sharp, and dangerous. There were hundreds of them. "They are called the Varnock," Lyra said. Her eyes stayed on the image. "They destroy worlds. They take what they want. And now they are watching us." Ethan stared at the ships. A cold fear ran through him. "What does this have to do with me?" he asked. Lyra turned to him slowly. "Everything." She moved her hand again, and the image changed. Now Ethan saw something else. Earth, his home, floating quietly in space. Ethan's chest tightened. "They know about your planet," Lyra said. "They see humans as weak, easy to break, easy to rule." Ethan clenched his fists. "No," he said under his breath. Lyra continued, her voice steady. "My advisors believed the same thing." Ethan looked at her quickly. "You think that too?" For the first time, Lyra did not answer right away. There was a small pause. Then she spoke. "I don't know," she said. That answer hit harder than anything else. Ethan felt anger rise inside him. "That's why you married me?" he asked. "To test if humans are worth saving?" Lyra stepped closer. "Yes. No lies, no hesitation. Just truth." Ethan let out a short, bitter laugh. "So what now?" he said. "If I fail your little test, what happens to Earth?" Lyra looked directly at him. "If humans are weak," she said slowly, "then they will not survive what is coming." The words were simple, but they felt like a sentence. Ethan looked away. For a moment, he felt small, just one man, standing in front of a queen, with the fate of his world hanging in the air. But then something changed. A small spark inside him. Fear slowly turned into something else. Determination. He looked back at Lyra. His eyes were no longer weak. "You're wrong," he said. Lyra raised an eyebrow slightly. "Humans are not weak," Ethan continued. "You just don't understand us." Lyra watched him carefully. This was what she wanted to see. "Then show me," she said. The room went quiet again. Ethan took a deep breath. "You want to test me?" he said. "Yes." "Fine." He stepped forward. "I'll prove it." Lyra's glowing eyes studied him. There was something new in her expression now. Interest. "Be careful, Ethan," she said softly. "This is not a game." Ethan nodded. "I know." A moment of silence passed between them. Then Lyra turned away. "Your test begins soon," she said. As she walked toward the glowing wall, the doors behind Ethan opened again. The soldiers had returned. "Take him," Lyra ordered. Ethan looked at her one last time. "Lyra," he said. She stopped, but did not turn around. "If I pass this test," he said, "what happens then?" There was a pause. Then she gave her answer. "Then humanity will have a future." Ethan swallowed hard. And if he failed, he already knew the answer. The soldiers stepped closer. Ethan did not resist. As they led him out of the chamber, one thought stayed in his mind. This was no longer about him. This was about Earth, about humans, about proving that they were not weak. And somewhere deep inside, he was ready to fight. The doors closed behind Ethan with a heavy sound. He was no longer in the bright chamber. Now he stood in a long, cold hallway. The walls were dark metal. Blue lights moved slowly across them, like quiet waves. The air felt colder here, sharper. Two alien soldiers walked beside him. They did not speak. They did not even look at him. Ethan kept walking forward. He did not ask questions. He already knew one thing. He was not a guest anymore. He was a subject. After a few minutes, they reached a large circular door. It opened without a sound. Inside was a massive hall. Ethan stepped in and stopped. There were many aliens inside. Tall, strong, different shapes and faces. Some had glowing eyes like Lyra. Others had pale skin or dark armored bodies. All of them turned to look at him. A human, alone. A low whisper spread across the room. Ethan could not understand their words, but he understood the feeling. Doubt. Disrespect. Some even looked angry. At the far end of the hall there was a raised platform. Several figures stood there wearing long dark robes. Their presence felt heavy, like they held power. Advisors. Leaders. Judges. Ethan walked forward slowly. Every step felt harder than the last. He could feel their eyes on him, measuring him, waiting for him to fail. When he reached the center of the hall, the soldiers stopped. One of them spoke in a deep voice. "The human has arrived." Silence filled the room. Then one of the robed figures stepped forward. He was taller than the others. His eyes glowed a cold blue. "This is the one?" he asked. His voice echoed across the hall. Ethan felt a chill, but he did not move. "Yes," another voice replied. "The Queen's chosen subject." A quiet murmur spread again. The tall figure looked down at Ethan. "This is disappointing," he said. Some of the others nodded. Ethan clenched his jaw. "I'm standing right here," he said. A few aliens reacted surprised. The tall figure narrowed his glowing eyes. "You speak without fear," he said. Ethan shrugged slightly. "Should I be afraid?" A low, almost mocking sound came from the crowd. The figure stepped closer. "Yes," he said. "You should." Ethan felt the weight of his words, but he did not step back. "I'm not," he replied. That made the room go quiet again. The figure studied him for a moment. Then he turned slightly, speaking to the others. "The Queen believes this human may prove value," he said, "but I see nothing." Another advisor spoke. "Humans are weak. They fight among themselves. They destroy their own world." Ethan's fist tightened. "You don't know us," he said. The second advisor looked at him. "I know enough," he replied. Ethan took a step forward. "No, you don't," he said firmly. "You only see what you want to see." A small tension filled the air. The first advisor raised his hand. "Enough," he said. He looked back at Ethan. "If you wish to speak for your kind, then prove it." Ethan nodded. "That's why I'm here." The advisor's eyes glowed brighter. "Good," he said. He lifted his hand, and the floor beneath Ethan suddenly changed. A glowing circle formed around him. Ethan looked down, surprised. "What is this?" he asked. "A test," the advisor said. The room darkened slightly. A new image appeared around Ethan. He was no longer in the hall. Now he stood in a battlefield. Broken structures, smoke, fire in the distance. Ethan looked around, confused. "What is this place?" he said. "A simulation," a voice echoed. "A real situation from one of our outer colonies." Suddenly he heard something. A scream. Ethan turned quickly. A group of alien civilians were trapped under fallen metal beams. Some were injured, some were not moving. And in the distance, something was coming, fast. Ethan felt his heart race. "This is your task," the voice said. "Save them." Ethan looked at the civilians, then at the danger coming closer. He had no weapons, no armor, nothing. "Are you serious?" he asked. No answer. The sound in the distance grew louder. Heavy steps. Something big. Ethan took a deep breath. He looked at the civilians again. They were scared, helpless, waiting, just like humans would be. Ethan's fear was still there, but something stronger pushed it down. He stepped forward. "All right," he said quietly. "Let's do this." He ran toward the trapped aliens. Behind him, in the real hall, the advisors watched in silence. Some expected him to panic. Some expected him to fail. But Lyra, who had just entered quietly, watched with focused eyes. She said nothing, but inside she was waiting to see if she had made the right choice. And as Ethan reached the first injured alien, the test truly began. Ethan ran toward the trapped aliens without stopping. The ground under his feet felt unstable. Pieces of metal and broken stone were scattered everywhere. Smoke filled the air, making it hard to see clearly. The injured aliens looked at him with fear in their glowing eyes. One of them tried to speak, but his voice was weak. Ethan dropped to his knees beside them. "It's okay," he said quickly. "I'm here." He didn't know if they understood his words, but they understood his actions. Ethan looked around fast. A large metal beam had fallen across two of them. It was too heavy to lift alone. He pulled at it once. It didn't move. Behind him, the sound grew louder. Heavy footsteps. Closer now. Ethan looked back. Through the smoke he saw a massive shape moving toward them. Tall, dark, fast. Whatever it was not friendly. Ethan's heart started pounding harder. He turned back to the trapped aliens. Think fast. That's what humans do. He looked around again. There were broken support rods near the ground, long and strong. An idea came to him. Ethan grabbed one of the rods and pushed it under the metal beam. He used it like a lever. He pushed down with all his strength. The beam moved, just a little. "Come on," he whispered. He pushed harder. His arms shook. His muscles burned. But the beam lifted enough. "Move," he shouted. One of the aliens pulled himself free. The other was still stuck. Ethan didn't stop. He adjusted the rod and pushed again. This time the second alien slipped out. Ethan dropped the rod and helped them both up. "Go," he said, pointing away from the danger. They hesitated for a moment. Then they ran. Ethan turned back. More aliens were still trapped, and the thing in the smoke was even closer now. A loud roar shook the air. Ethan froze for half a second. Then he forced himself to move again. "No time," he said under his breath. He ran to the next group. One alien was unconscious. Another was trying to wake him. Ethan quickly lifted the injured one onto his shoulder. He almost fell. The alien was heavier than he expected, but he didn't drop him. Step by step, he moved forward. Behind him, the creature finally came into view. It was huge, covered in dark armor-like skin. Its eyes burned with a red light. It saw Ethan, and it started running faster. Ethan felt pure fear hit him, but he kept moving. He reached a safer area and lowered the injured alien down. "Stay here," he said. The other alien nodded quickly. Ethan turned back again. Most people would run. Most people would save themselves. But Ethan didn't. Not yet. There were still others. He ran back into the smoke. In the observation hall, the advisors watched in silence. Some of them looked surprised. "He should have escaped by now," one said. "He had the chance," another added. Lyra stood still. Her eyes followed every movement Ethan made. "He is not thinking only of himself," she said quietly. Back in the simulation, Ethan reached the last group, but this time he was too late. The creature was already there. It stood between him and the trapped aliens. Ethan stopped. His breathing was heavy. The creature looked at him. Then it let out a deep growl. Ethan looked around. No weapons. No way to fight. Only one choice. He picked up a piece of broken metal. Not strong, not sharp, but it was something. "Hey!" Ethan shouted. The creature turned fully toward him. Ethan stepped forward. His hands were shaking, but he didn't step back. "Come on!" he shouted again. The creature charged. Fast, too fast. Ethan moved at the last second, barely avoiding it. He hit the ground hard. Pain shot through his arm, but he didn't stop. He got up quickly. He ran toward the trapped aliens. "Move!" he yelled. They started pulling themselves free. The creature turned again. It was angry now. Ethan stood between it and the civilians. He knew he couldn't win, but he didn't need to win. He just needed time. "Go!" he shouted one last time. The last alien escaped. At that moment, the creature jumped, right at Ethan. Everything slowed down. Ethan closed his eyes, and suddenly, everything disappeared. The battlefield, the smoke, the creature, all gone. Ethan opened his eyes. He was back in the hall, standing in the glowing circle, breathing hard, sweat on his face. The room was silent. No one spoke. The advisors looked at him, but this time, their expressions had changed. Not doubt, not anger, something else. Respect. Ethan slowly straightened himself. He was tired, but he stood tall. "I told you," he said quietly. "You don't understand humans." Lyra stepped forward. Her glowing eyes were calm, but different now. Stronger, softer. "You risked your life," she said. Ethan looked at her. "They needed help," he replied. A long silence followed. Then one of the advisors spoke. "This changes nothing," he said. "One act does not prove strength." Ethan looked at him. "Then give me a bigger test," he said. The room went still again, and somewhere deep in Lyra's mind, a decision was beginning to form. The hall was still silent when the alarm began. A deep, sharp sound filled the air. Red light flashed across the walls. Every alien in the room turned at once. Ethan felt the ground vibrate under his feet. "What is happening?" he asked. One of the soldiers rushed into the hall. He bowed quickly to Lyra. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice tense, "an enemy fleet has entered our outer zone." The room changed instantly. The calm was gone. Now there was only urgency. "How many?" one advisor asked. "Hundreds of ships," the soldier replied. A wave of tension spread across the hall. "The Varnock," someone whispered. Ethan felt his chest tighten. So this was it. Not a test. Not a simulation. Real war. Lyra stepped forward, her presence strong and controlled. "Show me," she ordered. The air in front of them shimmered again. A massive image appeared. Space, dark and endless. But now it was filled with movement. Black ships, sharp and dangerous, just like the ones Ethan saw before. But this time, they were closer. Much closer. They moved faster than expected, an advisor said. "We are not ready," another added. Ethan looked at the image carefully. His mind started working, fast. The ships were moving in tight groups. Too tight. "They're not spreading out," Ethan said suddenly. Some of the advisors looked at him, annoyed. "This is not your place to speak," one said. Lyra raised her hand. "Let him speak," she said. Ethan stepped closer to the image. "They're confident," he said. "Too confident," he said. "Too confident." "What does that mean?" Lyra asked. "It means they think this will be easy," Ethan replied. A small silence followed. "And?" Lyra asked again. Ethan pointed at the image. "If they stay grouped like that, they're vulnerable." One advisor shook his head. "They are stronger than us," he said. "Direct attack will fail." "I'm not talking about direct attack," Ethan said. Now more eyes were on him. "What are you suggesting?" Lyra asked. Ethan took a breath. "We split them," he said. The room went quiet. "Split the Varnock fleet?" an advisor said with disbelief. "Yes," Ethan replied. "That is impossible," the advisor said. Ethan shook his head. "No, it's risky, but not impossible." Lyra stepped closer. "Explain," she said. Ethan pointed again at the image. "They expect a normal defense. Strong lines. Heavy fire." He paused. "So we don't give them that." The advisors watched him carefully now. "We send a small force," Ethan continued. "Fast ships. Hit the edges, make them react." "To draw them out," Lyra said quietly. Ethan nodded. "Yes. Break their formation. Force them to chase." "And then?" one advisor asked. Ethan looked at Lyra. "We hit them when they're divided." Silence filled the room. It was a simple idea, but also dangerous. Very dangerous. "If this fails," one advisor said, "we lose everything." Ethan looked at him. "If we do nothing, we lose everything anyway," he said. That stopped the argument. Lyra turned back to the image. Her mind was working fast. Her advisors were strong, experienced, but they thought in one way: safe, controlled. Ethan did not. He thought like a human. Unpredictable. Risky. She turned back to him. "Would you lead this plan?" she asked. Ethan blinked. For a moment he was surprised. "Me?" he said. "Yes," Lyra replied. The room reacted immediately. "That is unacceptable," one advisor said. "A human cannot lead our fleet." Another added. Lyra did not look at them. She only looked at Ethan. "Well?" she asked. Ethan felt every eye in the room on him. This was it. A real choice. Not a test anymore. Real lives. Real danger. He took a slow breath. Then he nodded. "I'll do it," he said. The hall exploded with voices. "This is madness. He will fail. This will destroy us." Lyra raised her hand again. Silence returned. "The decision is mine," she said. Her voice was calm, but final. No one argued after that. She stepped closer to Ethan. "If you fail," she said quietly, "my empire falls." Ethan nodded. "I know." "And if you succeed," she continued. Ethan looked at her. She held his gaze. Then everything changes. For a brief moment, the noise of the room faded. It was just the two of them, queen and human. Trust or risk. Lyra stepped back. "Prepare the fleet," she ordered. The soldiers moved instantly. The advisors remained silent, but their faces were tense. Ethan looked one last time at the massive enemy fleet. Then he turned. This was no longer about proving something. This was war. And now, he was leading it. As he walked out of the hall, one thought stayed clear in his mind. Humans were not the strongest, not the fastest, but they had something else, something the enemy did not understand. And he was about to show them. The command room was alive with movement. Lights flashed, screens changed every second, voices spoke over each other. Outside, in the darkness of space, the fleet was ready. Ethan stood at the center, looking at the large display in front of him. The enemy ships were closer now, too close. "Positions?" Ethan asked. A nearby officer answered quickly. "Our main fleet is holding near the inner line. Fast units are ready for your signal." Ethan nodded. His heart was beating fast, but his mind was clear. He remembered every detail of the enemy formation. Tight groups, strong center, confident, perfect for what he had planned. Send the first wave, Ethan said. A pause. Some of the officers looked unsure. Now, Ethan repeated. The order was sent. On the screen, small groups of ships broke away from the main fleet. Fast, light. They moved toward the edges of the enemy formation. In the distance, the Varnock ships reacted, slow at first, then faster. They see us, one officer said. Good, Ethan replied. The small ships opened fire. Quick strikes. Then they turned and pulled back. Keep moving, Ethan said. Don't let them lock on. The Varnock ships began to chase, exactly as planned. They're taking the bait, another officer said, surprised. Ethan watched closely. Not yet, he said. We need more separation. Minutes felt like hours. The small ships kept attacking and pulling away, again and again. Slowly, the enemy formation began to stretch. Groups broke apart. Lines became uneven. They're splitting, an officer said. Ethan saw it. This was the moment. Prepare, main fleet, he said. The room grew quiet again. Everyone waited. Ethan took a deep breath. Then he gave the order. Attack. The main fleet moved, fast, strong. They charged directly into the gaps. The divided enemy ships could not support each other. One group was hit, then another. Explosions filled the screen. Light flashed across the dark space. They're falling back, someone shouted. Ethan didn't relax. Stay focused, he said. They're not done. On the screen, a larger Varnock ship moved forward, bigger than the rest, stronger. Its weapons began to charge. That's their command ship, an officer said. If it fires, we lose half our fleet. Ethan's eyes locked on it. Target it, he said. All units, focus fire. The fleet turned, everything aimed at one target. The command ship fired first. A massive blast shot across space. Several Allied ships were destroyed instantly. The room went silent for a second. Ethan clenched his fists. Keep firing, he shouted. The fleet responded. Shot after shot hit the command ship. Its shields flickered, then cracked. Almost, an officer said. The command ship began to turn, trying to escape. Ethan leaned forward. No, he said quietly. Finish it. One final wave of fire hit the ship. A bright flash filled the screen. Then, explosion. The command ship was gone. For a moment, everything stopped. Then the remaining enemy ships began to retreat. They're running, someone shouted. Cheers filled the room. Relief, shock, victory. Filled the room. Relief, shock, victory. Ethan stepped back slowly. It was over. They had won. Not by strength, not by numbers, but by thinking differently, by being human. Later, the great hall filled again. But this time, the mood was different. No whispers, no doubt, only silence and attention. Lyra stood at the front, strong, calm, royal. Ethan stood beside her, not as a prisoner, not as a test, but as something more. Lyra looked at her people. Today, she said, her voice clear, we faced destruction. She paused. And today, we survived. Her eyes moved across the hall. My advisors believed humans were weak. A small silence followed. I believed it. Once. She turned slightly toward Ethan. But I was wrong. The room remained still. Strength is not only power, she continued. It is courage. It is choice. She looked back at her people. This human showed us both. Ethan said nothing. He just stood there. This was never just a test, Lyra said. It was a decision. She took a step forward. And now, I have made mine. Another pause. Clear. Final. Humans are not weak. A quiet wave moved through the hall. They are different, she said, and that makes them strong. She turned fully to Ethan. No longer a subject, she said. No longer a test. He said, no longer a test. Ethan met her gaze. You are my equal. The words echoed softly, and in that moment, everything changed. Not just for Ethan, not just for Leiden, but for two worlds, two species, one future. As the hall slowly filled with respect and acceptance, far away in deep space, something else moved, silent, watching. A signal lit up, stronger than before, unknown. And this time, it was coming for both of them.